everybody. It's Brian for the Peerless Gamer. We're starting episode 19, which, if you've been following along, we've successfully navigated the debris field. We're inside the area of what should be a black hole, but is in fact not, thanks to Zinnia, who is apparently has something to do with the anomaly. And so we're going to continue here with episode 19. There's going to be some back and forth about, what we're going to do, and some discussion from Neoma Station. But yeah, hope you enjoy, and I'll see you on the back end of the episode here with our next steps and what we're planning on, how I plan on the next couple, 2-3 episodes to go. Really hoping that this is the, we're getting towards the final arc of this module or this adventure, and yeah, hope you enjoy. All right, take care, y'all. James says, we're still wanted by station security for the death of Dr. Manon, which you admit you caused, even accidentally. So we're still technically fugitives that need to clear our names. Our being James and Slick. Zinnia says that it might be possible Zinnia may have the ability to modify records and make it so that it looks like the Deliverance had a catastrophic failure and did not make it through the black hole, thereby allowing all of you to get away without being seen or remaking yourselves. Would that be possible? That's interesting. I don't. Yeah, no, I think I need to retcon that one a little bit, because knowing what I know about tech, especially, even though it's not fake, but I mean, James has already reimagined himself as someone else. If you haven't figured it out right now, his last name should be Atwell. James knows this. He knows how hard it was to lose his previous identity, and now he's going to lose himself again, and it was very difficult the first time. He says, I'm happy where we are right now. We just need to ensure that we don't have ourselves implicated in the death of Dr. Manon. I think Zinnia says, I can help with that. We can show that the suit malfunctioned, show that it wasn't murder, that it was in fact just a suit malfunction, which should be fairly easy to show in the logs that security hasn't been able to figure out on Neoma Station. What would be the difficulty of that? Zinnia is an AI of a different order of complexity. Has shown that it is fairly easy to get into various systems, including Neoma Station systems. So I'm going to say 75%, I'm going to say 80% or below. They're able to accomplish the log files, or they're able to send a message to security that will show what needs to be done. Yeah, 47. Okay. So Zinnia says we can make that happen. But right now, what we need to do is figure out how we can dissuade Atwell Industries from coming in here. I mean, the accretion disk will only do so much. If there's no fear of the black hole, which they're calling me a Lumina Aegis type event. So that's a good question. So Zinnia says they said this is a Lumina Aegis event. So would James or Osric know what those are? James worked for Atwell Industries. Was an Atwell, as a matter of fact, because he gave up on a duty or a destiny at Atwell Industries. So would he know what a Lumina Aegis event is? I'm going to say 50-50, because I haven't fleshed out his background enough to know if he was, if there's nepotism, so he's like on the board of directors, so he'd be privy to all the secret stuff, or if he was like the mailroom guy or some kind of mid-level person who may not have information, all of those things. No, he does not know what an Lumina Aegis event is. Dr. Osric works in, no. Dr. Osric works for Atwell as part of the funding for the station. Would he know what it is? I'm going to say 25% for him. No, he doesn't know either. Zinnia does not, Zinnia tells them that, they're describing me as a Lumina Aegis thing. And James and Osric look at each other and they're like, no, I don't know what that is. Arlie, can you shed any light on that? I'm going to say she's got a 25% chance, Arlie, of knowing as well. She would be constrained by whatever data she has. No, she is. Arlie says, I've looked in my data banks. I don't see anything called Lumina Aegis. It could be a code word. It could be a directive from the highest levels of Atwell Industries about whatever, maybe if they're considering Zinnia to be a Lumina Aegis type event, then perhaps, this is still Arlie talking, by the way, perhaps Lumina Aegis is a sign of higher technology or some kind of revolutionary technology or something that could change mankind. Sigma Ray was considered a crowning achievement in science, but maybe this is, we have heard of ancient technology, being seeded in this area. So, and let's see, what was it? Mysterious alien gates. Some of the truths that we have here. Forge spawn. The fact that these gates existed, and the fact that Zinnia says that, they were created by, they have similar technology structures that they share, means that there could be some kind of ancient technology in the Forge or in the galaxies surrounding us that, from a group or culture that existed millennia or hundreds of millennia ago that seeded the galaxy. It's not hard to believe that Zinnia is a product of that, but there may be other technologies out there as well. So that may be why this is called a Lumina Aegis event. Zinnia, I want to say Zinnia agrees with that because that would make the most sense. Maybe Zinnia hit upon that as well, but maybe she was hoping that they would have more information than what she got from Neoma Station. Maybe Neoma Station doesn't know either. Maybe there are air-gapped or ways to store data that is unreadable, and she hasn't cracked the human brain yet, so maybe Achilles was only privy to what that meant. So as they get closer to where Zinnia is, and what amounts to what Zinnia is, they find themselves surrounded by nothing. There's no stars. The external viewfinder shows a sphere or some kind of geometric shape. I want to say a sphere, but it could be a triangle, pyramid, square, something. You know what? I want to say that it looks like a 12-sided die. Looks like a dodecahedron. So a die 12 here. It's gonna look like something like this. It's got faces on it. You can see the faces. It slightly rotates. It is green to the eye, and there's no stars because I think we're far enough from the edge of the accretion disk that is being used by this, but I guess the whole area is lit up in kind of a fiery red color because it's just what it is. The dodecahedron itself is die 12 there, so it looks like that, and it but it's green against there's no stars because everything's kind of red. It's kind of a fiery, flashy red, but there's no heat, right? You can see the light coming from the accretion disk, and what the accretion disk is just everything's just spinning around so fast that the gravity is causing that issue. So Zinnia says that now that they know, now that Atwell believes that this is not a black hole, that this is an anomaly. They're going to send those ships. All of a sudden you see the sphere open up. I don't know, let me see, how far away are we from Zinnia? I want to do a D100 on this, see how far we are. We're okay, so D100, we're pretty close, right? 84% of the way from the edge to where Zinnia is. So I'd say we're fairly close. And Zinnia says, I can help you finish your repairs. I'm going to need to go somewhere. I can't stay here because I have no weapons, and the accretion disk is not going to keep them away for long. Depending on if they can detect from the sensor data that you survived, you should be spaghetti-fied right now. That's a good question. So let's go away from here for a second. We're keeping tabs on the repairs to the ship. So the sensor data that the Butterfeld got and what limited information that the Colossus got, along with what Neoma Station has for research, I'm going to say there's probably a 60 to, I want to say 70% chance or better, 70 or lower, that they're going to hit upon something. What I want to say is, do they find anything in the data to show that maybe the, and considering what Zinnia just did to make sure that the ship didn't suffer any more damage, maybe that showed up as well. You can't just have a gap in an accretion disk or something like that. So yeah, let's roll 70 or lower. Oh my God. Okay. Wow. Okay. And the new Vogue thing is, if it had been, there's a variance, right? So 78 means that the data they interpreted shows that this does not conform to, having gotten data so far into the accretion disk from the Butterfeld and from the Colossus, they're starting to see a lot of inconsistencies. And this kind of jives with, what Achilles has found out. So Achilles and everybody's having this discussion, Dr. Evelyn Voigt, who's the director of the station, based on this data. The vignette I want to have is the captain of the Colossus, the captain of the Butterfeld, Evelyn Voigt, the scientists who are working with Dr. Osric and Dr. Manond, and Achilles are in a closed door session in the office that I mentioned on one of the earlier episodes, where James went to talk to Evelyn about the murder and what have you. Does Achilles tell them about what the other ships have found? Okay, so he doesn't want to divulge the information right now, but he does say that there's enough weirdness out there that he thinks that they should be able to safely take a ship into the black hole. Maybe where they were in the accretion disk, they should not have been able to escape, but yet they did. Maybe it's the fear is what kept them back from the edge of Neoma Station. Like maybe the gravity was supposed to increase like tenfold the closer we got, and the gravity markers or whatever just doesn't fly. And the field strength and intensity and density were not such that it allowed that. It's not indicative of a black hole. So maybe it's something else. Maybe it's a white hole. Maybe it's maybe Achilles is creating some kind of narrative where it's like, maybe it's a way to travel between worlds. Maybe like a white hole, if you will. Dr. Voigt and the team there is excited for this, and considering that they have the assets, they would like to send the Butterfeld and the Colossus closer to the anomaly, which will feed right into what Achilles was planning on doing anyway, but it'll look like, Neoma Station wanted that to happen. So, all right, so the repairs are 86% complete. I would say in the past couple hours, we've got another milestone, and we're gonna roll. So at this point, I'm gonna say if we're 75 or lower, then the repairs are going to be done. Okay, so 75 or below. All right, so the repairs have been done in, I would say it's going to take them another hour or so to get complete. So they were able to do everything in about, it says 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 hours. So 10 hours-ish to prep and get everything ready to go. But with the extra crews from Neoma Station and from the Butterfeld, they were able to fix the Colossus and decontaminate, and there may still be foam all around, but everything is done, right? Maybe the ship isn't 100%, but it's like real close. They can pilot, they can maneuver, they may have some limited weapons. They're not going to be at full strength. While James and Zinnia and them are, talking about what it is that they're doing, this is what's happening outside. So we're going to go back to James and Zinnia and Osric and Slick and everybody. So Zinnia is telling them, I can't stay here. They're making plans to come here. And James says, how can you be sure? And she says, I've been monitoring communications from Neoma Station and the ships for months. I can easily do that now. And you see her pause for a moment, and then, or you see Zinnia pause for a moment. She's going to pipe in, basically you see her put her hand on the communication console, and you see her eyes flicker for a second, and you see what appears to be like the Matrix is running through the system. James goes to reach out because he's still kind of he doesn't completely trust Zinnia, but all of a sudden Harley says, I've just had a major upload of data to our memory banks. We're almost completely full. Scanning. And it takes Arlie, you can tell, on a whole different level here. You start seeing, we're decryption keys. And I have codes to be able to respond to encrypted comms. James says, what are the keys for? And all of a sudden you see Zinnia, making a connection, one last connection, and you hear, and the communications console comes on, and you hear comms going on from, various ships. And so let's want to do a ship name generator. Siren. Yeah, Siren sounds good. All right, so we got the Siren now. Ships in a quadrant. We have the Butterfeld, Colossus, flagship Atwell Industries. And so one of the other ones we might see is the Siren and Centipede. I like that one. Centipede's a cool name. All right, well, we'll use a Centipede. Centipede. And how many do we have? Let me see. So I think we said there was this roughly okay, so there's 4. So Butterfield, the Colossus, the Siren, and the Centipede. So those are the 4 ships. Centipede is let's just say that all the other ones are research vessels. So the Siren and the Centipede are also, because it's a massive area, right? So maybe the Siren is a research vessel, and the Butterfeld is also a research vessel. Centipede is not. I would say it probably supply and logistics, right? what you hear from Zinnia giving access to comms in the area, encrypted comms in the area, is that these other ships also saw us, being the Wild Deliverance, head into the accretion disk, and they've been feeding that data back to Neoma Station and the Colossus and what have you. And they've been, keeping radio comms silenced, but in the last, couple hours, they've seen that. So what you also hear on there is all ships converge on Neoma Station. So this is the captain of the Colossus. All ships need to converge upon Neoma Station for briefing. That means that there's at least 4 ships, 3 and the Centipede potentially, that are going to be heading into the anomaly. Zinnia said, she can't stay here, right? They got to go. They got to get out of here because they don't have any weapons and it's not safe. Zinnia was still trying to figure out what their function was. Was it observing? Was it managing a planet, or did not understand their function, and they can't stay here. And James says, well, if you're that big thing right over there, I don't think you're going to fit in our cargo hold. And Zinnia says, you're going to need to come and get me. I think James also says, what do we do with you when we have you? Where will you go? I mean, you being put into our ship here how does that even work? And Zinnia says, I'm still working on that, but I need you to join me inside. James says, okay, but it sounds like we don't have a lot of time. Zinnia says, that's all right. We'll do the best that we can. We still have a few things that we can do. So I think James and team are going to make their way to Zinnia. Actually, since we have succeeded in our expedition role, we're going to finish our expedition. It's under exploration, so we will go to exploration. We finished our exploration. Mark a reward on your discoveries per rank. Okay, and I think we considered this one somewhat, dangerous. So this is a dangerous one. Discovery's legacy. Okay, cool. It's not what I would have expected, but okay. I'll have to figure this one out later. The Corpo's ruining our planet. Discovery's legacy. Okay, so finishing an expedition. Mark a reward on your discovery track. So dangerous is 2 checks. So we're going to, since we needed 2 marks anyway, I will just make that really, really small. All right, so we'll have 2 tracks, discoveries there. We got to hit it. We got to do a strong hit. All right. How do you do a progress move for this? We're gonna roll the challenge dice and compare to your progress. You come to understand the true nature or cost of the expedition. Okay, what are the challenge dice? Okay, so the challenge dice are just the 2 10-sided dice. If your action score, okay, so how about expedition? When you've accrued progress on expedition's progress track and are ready to complete the expedition, make this move. Since this is a progress move, tally the number of filled boxes on your progress track. Okay. Okay, I see. Technically, we should have done one here as well, but all right, so And technically I didn't use the progress track correctly. So let's say 6. 6 was the number. So, all right, so we're gonna roll our challenge dice. You face a turn of events that undermines the expedition or makes its cost too great, depending on the circumstance in your choice. This might mean your expedition ends in failure, or that you push on while clearing some of your failed progress and raising the expedition's rank. Okay. All right. Well, that sounds like what I need to do, because, so we're going to move this to formidable. This is a formidable issue now, and okay, delete. So we're going to need some more time and effort. All right, so we're formidable now. All right, and so we'll need another couple of bits here. So we missed on our making a expedition move, which is fine, because we haven't actually rescued Zinnia yet. We will make our way into Zinnia, and I think what Zinnia tells us is I can make a hole inside the structure to accommodate all of you, including a limited atmosphere to get you to me, but we need to do this quickly. So James and the crew. So James and Dr. Osric and Slick and Arlie and the Wild Deliverance all make their way towards Zinnia. It's a very large structure. It's moon size, so it's going to be fairly large. But on one of the faces is a hole of. It's not a smooth dodecahedron or 12-sided object. There's bumps and craters, and there's things on there. Arlie is asking James to run scans, or James is asking Arlie to run scans on the outside of that. Arlie says that this is a structure like nothing that anybody's ever seen, obviously. The composition of the materials on the surface are something they've not seen before. It has a amazing density. She does say that it's fairly well fortified, that it would be able to potentially even defend against the energy weapons on board the Colossus, considering the structure. She can't penetrate the surface, but the sensor is showing that there is something there, and that might be helpful to take a sample of the material just in case. James says, yeah, if we have time, we can do that, but it's going to take some time to get inside the structure. And so Arlie is continuing to run scans, and Zinnia says, right over here, and you can see her moving the ship in place with the tractor beam. And the Wild Deliverance heads inside of Zinnia, or the structure that holds Zinnia. And that was it for episode 19. Guess we're going to head in to find out how we can help Zinnia. The game has a very similar mechanic for precursor vaults, so looking into seeing how that's formatted for this kind of scene. I think that's going to be the heart of the matter, the treasure at the end, if you will. So just a little metagaming there. I think that's where we're going to be heading with this, where we'll be entering what amounts to a precursor vault, and at the center is whatever Zinnia is. We know from the game that some kind of AI, but they have to be in something, or we're going to have to figure out some way of getting Zinnia off of or out of the structure that we are near. So looking forward to seeing where that plays out, and looking forward to seeing where we're going to head with this, because I think the next vow, or the next quest milestone in this case, we won't call them necessarily vows, but will be getting away safely with zinnia, and I think that might actually be like a little extra. So we're going to get away safely. We have to do it with zinnia, otherwise it's only a partial success or something like that. So looking forward to seeing what that looks like, and I hope you will too. So come join us. Click the like and subscribe button in the bottom, and tell your friends. As I've found, and as I've been watching a lot of more solo role play how-tos or things like that, there's no wrong way to play a solo RP, as long as you have some way of changing the dynamic using some randomization, which includes dice. So as long as you're entertained and I'm entertained, then I think where everybody wins. So hope everyone has a good day. Take care of yourselves, as I'm fond of saying here, because you're the only you have. All right, take care. Bye.